using active travel, cycling and walking, and making the whole borough much more friendly for pedestrians and cyclists. And it was a fantastically successful initiative. But Clyde's with us today to share some of his experiences from working to undertake flood resilient works in a particular area of Waltham Forest. And he's going to share with us how you can really win hearts and minds on these kinds of initiatives. So over to you, Clyde.
Thank you, Emma. Do you want to go straight to the next slide, please? That's great. So thank you for that introduction. Way back in July 21, Waltham Forest was hit with some significant flash flooding along the route of a culverted river called the Phillybrook, that brought quite significant devastation to a large number of residential properties and a school. And of course, the default position of residents in such traumatic situations is to kind of look to someone to blame. Normally they tend to be big organisations, so the initial gut feeling was the council wasn't cleaning the drains, so the council was getting a whole load of blame. And then of course Thames Water, who doesn't like blaming a water company for something going wrong. So we then had to kind of, try to recover the situation, but also it was a big wake-up call to the council, I think, in the grand scheme of, what is our role as a council in the place in responding to flooding. We perhaps traditionally had a very passive response and role, but all of a sudden, with these particular flash floods and the scale of those flash floods, it took us into a whole new space around emergency planning. Our climate was impacting us in terms of weather in a very negative sense, beyond perhaps just heat waves and some of the forest fires that we'd seen in previous years. It was actually a flooding thing and something to expect more of. So we needed to start really reflecting on how we made some of our streets more resilient to flooding. Next slide, please. So we set up, as most councils do, a task and finish group to kind of look into how we responded to these particular floods in July 21, as well as to what we needed to think about changing in terms of how the council responded to these emergency situations, but as well as how we started to build flood resilience into what we knew were some of our more at-risk neighbourhoods. And we obviously went through a Section 19 report. We pulled in various external bodies. But what we recognised straight away, and what we started to debate with our residents, because our residents started to assume that Thames Water could come along, put bigger pipes in the ground, and all of a sudden everything was resolved. And we kind of recognised that A, wasn't going to happen, and B, that wasn't the solution, because this was an issue around climate change, climate impact. This wasn't just around kind of the need for bigger pipes. So something more sustainable needed to be put in place. Next slide, please. So we started pulling together a list of projects. We identified some capital funding within our own budgets that we could help to then lever in funding from the Environment Agency, Thames Water, the GLA, the Mayor in London, and we started to put together a programme of interventions, and Department for Education programme of interventions that initially honed in on some of the worst impacted by those July 21 floods, but also gave us a pipeline, excuse the pun, for future projects to ensure that other neighbourhoods didn't suffer in the same traumatic way as the roads that I just showed some visuals from. Next slide, please. So one of the big first schemes was a traditional SUD scheme in Esther and Wadley Road. And very interesting, these two roads run parallel to each other. Very short terrace property roads, but they're at the bottom of a hill, and the Filly Brook, that culverted river, runs beneath them. Interesting, when we came forward with a scheme, and it was to remove a load of parking from the area and put in permeable surfaces and rain gardens. Esther Road totally endorsed this approach. Straight away, they wanted us in there developing this scheme, recognising that they were losing car parking spaces. But of course, you can move a car when a flood's on its way. You can't move your house. So they understood some of the very basic principles. Wadley Road, however, the residents there were not interested. They saw these schemes as impacting the value of their properties, because they would be losing car parking spaces outside their homes. So we got on with Esther Road and we delivered it. And what do you know? All of a sudden, residents in Wadley Road wanted to be reconsulted. They saw the difference that it was making almost immediately. We had some heavy rains, and they saw how the permeable road surface was taking water away. They saw how the rain gardens were working. They also saw how beautiful the rain gardens looked, and who does not want beauty in their residential street. So Wadley Road came back to us and said, "Oh, can we now have this?" So we thankfully were able to secure some further funding. Each scheme was about £500,000. Scored some further funding, and were able to implement Wadley Road, which we completed, I think, the early part of this year. Next slide, please. And here's what we did. And of course, once you dig up some of these roads in their entirety, you start to uncover a whole myriad of other evils and sins. So once we uncovered these roads, other pipes started breaking, snapping from other utilities. So it meant we had to get the other utilities in to kind of upgrade existing pipe works under these road services. So what you've got is a work in progress shot here of Esther Road and the completed autumnal picture of Esther Road, which doesn't show it in its total beauty now because of the leaf fall. But you can see we took away huge tracts of parking but people recognise the importance of saving their homes and their ability to move their cars around. What we've also done is rolled out free water butts in these roads as well. So we've kind of worked on the principle, getting as much water off the streets during a flash flood is the most important thing. Next slide, please. Here you've got the works on Wadley Road. Again, very similar, lots of ancient pipe work that also got replaced because we dug up the road. Permeable surfaces, rain gardens, they work. They are simple solutions, and they do not cost the earth if you're requesting Thames Water or another water company to come in and put bigger pipes in. Next slide, please. This is King's Passage, not Wadley Road. This is just a walkthrough that connects along the Filly Brook, and it was just about putting in, permeable surface that allows us to store and release water over a slower period, but stops lots of properties from getting flooded as a consequence. So some of these solutions can be very basic and very simple and straightforward. Some are a little bit more challenging, but certainly not as challenging as putting big pipes under the ground. But they do all contribute and work together, and that's why we've got this kind of holistic kind of scheme that kind of tries to hold water back as far up the Filly Brook as possible. Next slide, please. This is a similar scheme that we did in Walthamstow, again along the Filly Brook, but this was as a consequence of the school there being flooded. So we've got DFE funding to help us with this scheme, but again, the same principles apply. Lots of rain gardens, lots of planting, permeable surfacing going in really helps. And those you can see in this picture, the stratification that enables us to kind of hold water back, and that water then gets released slowly into the existing drainage network. Next slide, please. And this is that scheme under construction. And again, another positive of this is all of a sudden we don't have parents thinking that they can drive along this road and drop their children off at school. It's beautified the street, makes it a lot more endearing. and send some positive messages to future generations about the importance of biodiversity and about climate-friendly streets moving forward as well. Next slide, please. This is a bigger scheme that we've done with some wetlands at the back of the town hall. This is to ensure future residential areas don't get flooded. We just had a big dog walking field for all intents and purposes that we've scooped out huge amounts of soil, and we put in kind of drainage systems that are now sites of beauty and nature, as well as fulfilling flood resilience for that local neighbourhood. Next slide, please. And again, another scheme in Chingford where this was always boggy area. It was a turf area of a park, but it was always boggy because there was a drainage issue in that particular area. So in very crude terms, we dug it out, we've made it ponds, and just let the wildlife thrive. And it is so much better now as a kind of place of tranquility, rather than just a boggy part of a park that no one can use for any purpose whatsoever. It's now an attractive place that's adding extra value to our biodiversity and nature recovery in Waltham Forest, as well as offering that kind of flood resilience approach. Next slide, please. We've got another couple of schemes coming up. One's around Leighton Sixth Form College, again along the route of the Phillybrook. This is due to go to planning at the tail end of this year, and we hope to be building this in the new year. But again, working with DFE to kind of help bring that scheme about. Next slide, please. Just mentioned our water butt scheme. We gave away a huge number of water butts, I think over 1,000 water butts in the end, to households in particularly challenged flood risk areas. And we're just working on the premise. These are easy to install, they're non-intrusive, but every little piece of water during one of these kind of deluges, really helps if you can kind of hold it back from the drainage system for as long as you can. And then, of course, you've also got water to water trees in the streets, rain gardens maybe, or your own plants. But it was a heavily oversubscribed scheme. But again, it was a scheme that we worked with Thames Water to deliver. Next slide, please. And then changes in street design. Emma referred to some of our work around low traffic neighbourhoods earlier. We've increasingly replaced some of our early interventions around implementing low traffic neighbourhoods with just bollards to replacing them with rain gardens. We've taken out whole lines of parking and even bus lanes in some instances to put whole stretches of rain gardens in place to kind of improve the flood resilience of our borough, increase permeability, and of course increase our nature and biodiversity offer as well. And again, who doesn't want beautiful streets? Next slide, please. And this is a little bit of a more difficult slide for me to explain, but just kind of fits into the kind of range and the approach that we have to undertake, and some of the science that's involved in identifying the areas at risk and kind of plans that we need to put in place. But it's really important to keep having that pipeline of schemes going, because you never know when there might be some money available to implement one of these schemes. Next slide, please.